Hi and welcome to Tristan channel, and in this video I'll be continuing my Masters of the Mystic Art series with practitioner and assistant to John Dee, Edward Kelley, who was a crucial key or part of Dee's work. Sir Edward Kelley, also known as Edward Talbot, was an English Renaissance occultist and scryer. He is best known for working with John Dee in his magical investigations. Besides the professed ability to see spirits or angels in a shoestone or mirror, which John Dee so valued, Kelley also claimed to possess the secret of transmutating base metals into gold, the goal of alchemy, as well as supposed Philosopher's Stone itself. Legends began to surround Kelley shortly after his death. His flamboyant biography, his relationships with Queen Elizabeth I, First Royal Major Sir John Dee, and the Emperor Rudolph II, and his claim of great alchemical skill and the ability to communicate with angels have all led to his relative notoriety among historians. Much of Kelley's early life is obscure. He claimed descent from the family of Uy, Maine in Ireland. He was born at Worcester on the 1st of August 1555 at 4 p.m. according to a horoscope that John Dee drew up. His sister Elizabeth was born in 1558, and he had a brother Thomas who later joined him in Dee's household. However, much of Kelley's life before meeting John Dee is not known. He may have also studied at Oxford under the name of Talbot. Whether or not he attended university, Kelley was educated and knew Latin and possibly some Greek by the time he met Dee. Anthony A. Wood records an Anthony Oxenianus and that Kelley, being about 17 years of age, at which he attained to a competency of grammar learning at Worcester and elsewhere, was sent to Oxford, but to what house I cannot tell. However, I have been informed by an ancient bachelor of divinity, who in his younger years had been an amanuensis to Mr. Thomas Allen of Gloucestershire Hall, that Kelley had spent some time in that house, whereupon I, recurring to the matriculation, could not find the name Kelley, only Talbot of Ireland, 3 of which names were students there in 1573. This relation being somewhat dubiously delivered to me, I must tell you that Kelley, having an unsettled mind, left Oxford abruptly without being entitled into the matricula. According to some accounts, Kelley was in Lancaster pillarized in Lancaster for forgery or counterfeiting. Both his ears were supposedly cropped, a common punishment during the Tudor dynasty. He usually wore a cap on his head, as it was thought this was to hide his lack of ears. John Weaver says, Kelley, that famous English alchemist of our times, who, flying out of his own country after he had lost both his ears at Lancaster, was entertained with Rudolph II, and last of that Christian name, Emperor of Germany. Some accounts say that he first worked at an apothecary's apprentice. Some say he worked as a notoriety in London. Kelley approached John Dee in 1582. Dee had already been trying to contact angels with the help of a scryer or crystal gazer, but he had not been successful. Kelley professed the ability to do so, and impressed Dee with his first trial. Kelley became Dee's regular scryer or medium. Dee and Kelley devoted huge amounts of time and energy to these spiritual conferences. From 1582 to 1589, Kelley's life was closely tied to Dee's. In those 7 years, they conducted conferences or seances, including prayers for enlightenment in the spirit of Dee's Excusulum, that alchemy and angelic knowledge would heal the rift of Christendom. Dee also believed, I may butcher these words, but Dee also believed that the angels held knowledge that would aid the English in the discoveries of new and uncharted lands on Earth. Kelley married a widow, Jane or Joanna Cooper of Chipping Norton in 1563 to 1606. He helped educate her 2 children. The girl, future poet Westonia, later described him as a kind stepfather and noted how he took her in after the deaths of her 2 grandmothers. Kelley had also hired a Latin tutor for her named John Hammond. About a year after entering into Dee's service, Kelley appeared with an alchemical book, the Book of Dunstan, and a quantity of a red powder, which Kelley claimed he and a certain John Blockley had been led to by a spiritual creature at Northwick Hill. Accounts of Kelley's finding the book and the powder in the ruins of Glastonbury Abbey were first published by Elias Ashmole, but are contradicted by Dee's diaries. With the powder, whose secret was presumably hidden in the book, Kelley believed he could prepare a red tincture which would allow him to transmute base metals into gold. He reportedly demonstrated its power a few times over the years, including in Bohemia, which is present-day Czech Republic, where he and Dee resided for many years. In 1583, Dee became acquainted with Obrat Lasky, a Polish nobleman interested in alchemy. In September of that year, Dee, Kelley and their families left England with Lasky for the continent. Dee sought the patronage of Emperor Rudolf II in Prague and King Stefan I of Poland in Krakow. Dee apparently failed to impress either monarch enough to earn a permanent station. Dee and Kelley lived a nomadic life in Central Europe, meanwhile continuing their spiritual conferences. While Kelley was apparently more interested in alchemy than scrying, Dee seemed more interested in making contact with the angels. Kelley's supposed value was as a medium, as only he was able to understand and scribe their language. According to those close to Dee, particularly his son Arthur, there was no little tension between the 2 men and their families as they journeyed through Europe. Some claim that Dee seems to have driven Kelley to the brink of insanity, forcing him to perform long scrying sessions on a nearly daily basis. Kelley and Dee's involvement in necromancy eventually caught the attention of the Catholic Church, and on 27th of March 1587 they were required to defend themselves in a hearing with the papal Numicio Germanico Maspina, Bishop of San Severi. Probably butchered that. Dee handled the interview with tact. But Kelley is said to have infuriated the Numicio by stating that one of the problems of the Catholic Church is the poor conduct conduct of many of the priests. The new Chicho noted in a letter that he was tempted to toss Kelley out the window. The action of throwing someone out the window was somewhat common, a somewhat common tradition in Prague at that time. In 1586, Kelley and Dee found the patronage of the wealthy Bohemian lord William of Rosenberg, a senior official from a powerful family who also shared Kelley and Dee's alchemy interests, and is known to have participated in spiritual sessions with the two men. Kelley and Dee settled in the town of Trebon and continued their research there, and according to Dee's diary, it was during this time that Kelley is said to have performed his first alchemical transmutation on the 19th of December 1586. Kelley's skilled draftsmanship is evident in notes taken by Dee during certain seances. These notes are available in Dee's Book of Enoch. These notes show Kelley's initial commitment to the alchemist's mutual goal. However, he soon began to waver and express a desire to stop. Dee insisted that they continue. In 1587, possibly as an act to sever the sessions, Kelley revealed to Dee that the angels, namely a spirit Madimi, had ordered them to share everything they had, including their wives. Dee, anguished by the order of the angels, subsequently broke off the spiritual conferences. He did, however, share his wife. This cross-matching occurred on the 22nd of May 1587 and is noted in John Dee's diary. May the 22nd, Mistress Kelley received the sacrament, and to me and my wife gave her hand in charity, and we rushed not from her. 9 months later, on 28th of February, Dee's wife Jane gave birth to a son, Theodorus Trebonius Dee, although there may have been speculation among the families that the child was actually Kelley's. He was raised as Dee's son. References to the child's communion are present in Dee's diary. The cross-matching incident remained a secret, as did many of their activities, until after the post-mortem publication of Dee's diaries. There was no controversy at the time. Though it seems the two shared an intimate and often cooperative partnership, it was often characterized as quarrelsome and tense by contemporaries and historians. Also, they were clearly involved in activities that could be seen as heretical to the Catholic Church of the time, so a certain amount of tact and secrecy was required. Kelley left Dee at Trebon in 1589, possibly to join the Emperor's court at Prague. Dee returned to England. They did not see each other again. The manuscript collector Carl Widman from Augsburg was between 1587 and 1588 his secretary at the court of Rudolf II, and also worked for the Rosenberg family in Trebon. In England in 1588, rumours circulated that Kelley was arrested by the emperor for falsely advertising that he could transmute base metals to gold, a skill that Queen Elizabeth could employ. William Cecil wrote to Edward Dyer, an English diplomat, inviting Kelley to return to England and the Queen's service. In October 1590, one of his associates, Ralph Lacey, a recusant from Yorkshire, arrived at the court of James VI of Scotland from Prague, he had served the king's grandfather, the Earl of Lennox. The English ambassador, Robert Bowles, was suspicious of him and persuaded James VI to send him back. By 1590, Kelley was living an opulent lifestyle in Europe, enjoying the patronage of nobility. He received several estates and large sums of money from Rosenberg. Meanwhile, he continued his alchemical experiments until he had convinced Rudolf II that he was ready to start producing gold. The purpose of his work, Rudolf knighted him Sir Edward Kelley of Inmany and New Lubuln on 23rd February 1590. In May 1591, Rudolf had Kelley arrested and imprisoned in the Krvoklat castle outside Prague, supposedly for killing an official named Jiří Hunkler in a duel. It is possible that he also did not want Kelley to escape before he had actually produced any gold. In 1595, Kelley agreed to cooperate and return to his alchemical work. He was released and restored to his former status. When he failed to produce any gold, he was again imprisoned, this time in Hinven Castle in Most. His wife and stepdaughter attempted to hire an imperial councillor who might free Kelley from imprisonment, but he died a prisoner in late 1597, early 1598, of injuries received while attempting to escape. However, according to the account of Simon Thaddeus, Rudolf II's geologist, he poisoned himself in front of his wife and children. In 1674, Sir Thomas Browne, an acquaintance of John Dee's son Arthur Dee, in correspondence to Elias Ashmore, stated that Arthur Dee said also that Kelley dealt not justly by his father, and that afterwards imprisoned by the emperor in a castle from whence, attempting escape down the wall, he fell and broke his leg and was imprisoned again. A few of Kelley's writings are extant today, including 2 alchemical verse treatises in English and 3 other treatises which he dedicated to Rudolf II from prison. They were entitled Tractatus duo Agegri de Lapide Philosophorum una cum Fiatro Astronomiae, 1676, that's a mouthful. The treatises have been translated as Alchemical Writings of Edward Kelley, 1893. Kelley's angels communicated to him in a special language termed angelical, subsequently called Enochian, which he then relayed to Dee. Some modern cryptographers argue that Kelley invented it. See, for example, the introduction to the Complete Enochian Dictionary by Donald Laycock. Some say that this was all a farce, but are not clear whether Dee was a victim or an accomplice because of this precedent and of a dubious connection between the Voynich manuscript and John Dee through Roger Bacon. Kelley has been suspected of having fabricated that book too, to swindle Rudolf. For me. Kelley said that angelical was depicted by angels who he saw and heard by means scrying in a crystal ball or mirror. He also described the angels as communicating by means of tapping out letters displayed in a rectangular tablet. The first third were tapped out with each angelical word, backwards, the following 2/3 with each word forwards. There are no significant errors or discrepancies in word usage between the first and following parts. The English translations were not tapped out, but, according to Kelley, appeared on little strips of paper coming out of the angels' mouths. Dee considered the dictation of the angelical material highly important for 3 reasons. First, Dee believed angelical represented a documentable case of true glossolalia, thereby proving that Kelley was actually speaking with angels and not from his imagination. Second, the angels claimed that their language was actually the original prototype of Hebrew, the language with which God spoke to Adam, and thus the first human word. Third, the angelical material takes the form of a set of conjurations that would summon an extremely powerful set of angels who would reveal many secrets to those who sought them, especially the key to the philosopher's stone, to godlike wisdom and eternal life. And there you have it, Edward Kelley. If you like this video, hit the like, and if you haven't, then please show support by subscribing to this channel, because it would be great to have you here. So, until the next video, take care and be well.